welcome to another Table Talks with Mr. Green. In this episode, we're looking at Marie Antoinette, the notorious queen of France in the late 18th century that came to a bad end during the French Revolution. But it's not so much Marie Antoinette we'll be discussing, but the idea of Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette, the meme, the trope. I even looked at TV tropes to see if she has an official trope. She doesn't. But she does have a page on the site, and a bunch of tropes have been applied to her. I put the link below. Anyway, I bring this up because recently Marie Antoinette was invoked as news broke that Melania Trump was organizing a renovation of the White House Rose Garden. For example, former Congresswoman Katie Hill, who resigned under a little bit of a cloud in 2019, said some Marie Antoinette shit right there in response to the Rose Garden work. Here's what the First Lady herself tweeted about the renovation. Even in the most difficult times, the White House Rose Garden has stood as a symbol of strength and continuity. Today, it is my pleasure to announce our plans to renew and restore this iconic space so that we preserve its history and beauty for generations to come. The response on Twitter has been mixed, tending to harsh. It reminds me of like a 42% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. In scrolling through the 16,000 plus comments on the original tweet, the most common historical comparison made is to Marie Antoinette, with a few Eva Brauns thrown in. So let's figure out what it means when someone calls a woman Marie Antoinette. I'll also try to get at why I think it's kind of a cheap shot that's often a little lazy and sometimes misogynistic. When someone invokes Marie Antoinette, this is what I hear. A rich, vapid, aristocratic woman, a bimbo surrounded by luxury and waste, but totally oblivious to the everyday problems of the rank and file of the population. Let them eat cake. That's the line that sums up her callousness. She's also a meddler, who despite not being elected by really anyone, finds herself close to power through her looks or family connections, and then uses that power to satisfy her own vanity or her outright malevolence. Marie Antoinette is a villain, a parasite, a leech on the body politic, and a dumb one at that. But here's the thing. Does Marie Antoinette even deserve to be called a Marie Antoinette? Does the namesake of the trope deserve it? I'm not so sure. Look, the French Revolution is a favorite topic of mine, and I kind of think a lot of the French aristocracy and the monarchy got what was coming to them. The revolution is way, way more complicated than that, but there is a karmic satisfaction to some of it that even Charles Dickens couldn't deny, and he hated the excesses of the revolution. Here's the short version of Marie Antoinette's life. She was born in 1755 in Austria and was married to the grandson of King Louis XV of France to cement a crappy alliance that had already failed in the 7 Years' War. And both Austria, Marie's home, and France were clinging to it for lack of other options. Her mother was the very formidable Maria Theresa of the House of Habsburg, who took power under very difficult circumstances when she was a teenage girl, and kept it through war and strife, all the while bearing over a dozen children, including Marie Antoinette. Two of Marie's brothers, Joseph and Leopold, went on to be Holy Roman Emperors. She was one of Europe's oldest and most powerful dynasties. Her marriage to Louis XVI was meh. He wasn't that into it, or didn't really seem to be into anyone. They were married for several years before they finally sealed the deal. There's a lot of stories on that. One said that he had an anatomical problem that was fixed by circumcision. According to Marie's brother, Joseph, sent by their mother to figure out why the marriage hadn't been consummated, he declared them both blunderers. After Joseph coached Louis up, their marriage was able to produce 4 children. Marie lived at Versailles and certainly lived the lavish life of French royalty for sure. She did likely cheat on her husband with a Swedish count named von Fursten. These sins seem pretty certain. That said, Marie Antoinette was never the arch spendthrift her critics made her out to be. Oh, and she had some critics. Marie was queen during the Enlightenment, a time of increasing literacy, a takeoff in the printing industry, and a spike in interest in politics and philosophy that was centered in France. And she became a favorite target of critics of France's absolute monarchy. But despite it being a more rational age, a big form of attacks on Marie were so-called libels. These blistering pamphlets often insinuated or outright accused Marie Antoinette of cheating on her husband in often graphic detail. The libel's favorite proposed lover for Marie was her brother-in-law. During the Revolution, she was thought to be behind any repressive or reactionary move by the monarchy. These accusations were true to an extent. Marie thought her husband needed to defend his crown and wanted to be sure that royal power was passed to her son intact. But Louis was such a mediocrity, he really wasn't up to the challenge and the difficulties of the Revolution. She was accused by many in France of being a shill for her home country of Austria. Her mother thought she didn't do enough to further Austrian interests. She was kind of getting it from both sides. And that kind of sums up Marie Antoinette. So what's Marie Antoinette being criticized for? Being promiscuous, wasting money, meddling where she doesn't belong. These lines of attack play into some of the worst and most pernicious broadsides against women in general and women in politics specifically. In the end, during the Revolution, her children were taken from her, her palaces and wealth were confiscated, her crown removed, and her husband executed. Marie Antoinette was guillotined in 1793. Robespierre, the arch-radical, actually thought it was a bad idea, but went along with it in the end. She was 39 years old. The big Rose Garden renovation that got me thinking about this will supposedly take 2 weeks, and it's already begun. Frankly, it sounds pretty minor. According to the White House, which I'll take with a grain of salt, this redesign is privately funded and doesn't use any taxpayer dollars. When you deploy the Marie Antoinette trope, think about why you're using it. Is your beef with her husband, with the system she's a part of? Is she just a soft target, an easy mark adjacent to your real antagonist? And perhaps consider whether or not even the original Marie Antoinette deserves to be dubbed a Marie Antoinette. This cake's delicious. Going on. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This has been another table talk from Mr. Green. Thanks. Welcome to the Cake and Dream.